Mangwanani malelepo vukenjani qeqwas vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. You are joined by Ashwin Berry and Glenora Shipura.
Now, today is Random Acts of Kindness Day. Now, if you're waiting for a sign to be kind to a stranger, here it is. Now, National Random Acts of Kindness is the perfect chance to do something for a stranger, a friend, or a colleague. I'm looking at you, Ashwin.
I'll do my best as I wait for your kindness to descend upon me.
Okay, and today is also No Mask Day. Now, this is after the head of state announced that wearing a mask in public spaces will no longer be mandatory in Namibia. Let's have a look at this video on No Mask Day.
Today is Thursday, the 17th of March, and these are the news stories making the headlines. 6 army recruits died during training, and this is in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe National Army Commander Lieutenant General David Sigauke said 6 army recruits died during an 8-month training program that started in July last year and ended on Tuesday, 15 March. Lieutenant General Sigauke revealed this in his address during a pass-out parade by 2,442 soldiers at the Imbizo or training depot in Bulawayo. The training commenced on July 1, 2021, with a total of 2,501 recruits comprising of 2,242 males and 259 females drawn from various provinces. However, only a total of 2,442 comprising of 2,190 males and 252 females graduated. On a sad note, we lost 6 recruits who passed on during the time of our training, and we say may their souls rest in eternal peace, said Lieutenant. Now, Sigauke said the army has the mandate to defend the country's territorial integrity and warned of threats posed by jihadists in Mozambique to regional peace and stability.
Now, gunmen killed 11 Nigeria security personnel in 2 attacks. Now, gunmen on Tuesday killed 11 security personnel, including 7 policemen and 4 vigilantes, in attacks in central and northwestern Nigeria. In the latest, violence blamed heavily on armed criminal gangs. Now, northwest and central Nigeria have been terrorized for years by the gangs who raid and loot villages, steal cattle, and carry out mass abductions of residents for ransom. Now, recently, the attacks have intensified despite military attempts to drive bandits out of their camps in the forest. Now, in the fire attacks on Tuesday, scores of bandits stormed a police station in central Niger State, Magama district, leading to a gunfight with policemen and local militia, police spokesperson said in a statement. Now, unfortunately, during the gun battle, the divisional police officer, 2 other policemen, and 4 vigilante members lost their lives. Biwaudun said in a statement, several bandits were also neutralized in the fierce gun battle in which many of the attackers escaped with injuries.
In the next story, Burkina Faso-born Dibedo Francis Kere, first African to win Pritzker Prize. Burkina Faso-born architect Dibedo Francis Kere has become the first African to be awarded the Pritzker Architecture Prize, architecture's most prestigious honor. Kere, aged 56, was recognized for his pioneering designs that are sustainable to the earth and its inhabitants in lands of extreme scarcity, according to Tom Pritzker, chairman of the Hyatt Foundation that sponsors the award. Kere, a dual citizen of Burkina Faso and Germany, said he was the happiest man on this planet to become the 51st recipient of the illustrious prize. Kere is renowned for building schools, health facilities, housing, civic buildings, and public spaces across Africa, not only in his homeland, but also in countries such as Benin, Mali, and Sudan, and won plaudits for his 2001 project for a primary school in Gando village in Burkina Faso, where he was born. Unlike traditional school buildings that used concrete, Kero's innovative design combined local clay fortified with cement to form bricks that helped keep the interior cool.
Namibia home to 64,000 child brides. Now, Namibia is home to over 64,000 girls and women who were married in childhood before they were 18 years old. According to Namibia's country profile by United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, 1 in 14 young women were married in childhood in Namibia. Of the 64,000 child brides, a total of 15,500 women and girls were married before age 15 in Namibia. And the profile further pointed out that the most vulnerable populations with regards to these are girls with no education who live in rural areas and come from poor families. Now, the data also indicated that most of the girls who were married before the age of 18 were married to men between 5 to 9 years older than them. Now, by region, the highest prevalence of child marriage among girls was reported in the Kavango regions at 39.7%, while Kunene reported 24%, Zambezi 23.8%, Omaheke 23%, and Oshodonjupa 22.6%. Now, according to UNICEF, globally, more than 500 million girls and women alive today were married in childhood. The highest rates of child marriage are found in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia, where 34% and 28% of young women were married in childhood, respectively.
Truly saddening statistics. And our next story does not get any better. A taxi driver flees the scene after running over 5 children. A driver of a minibus taxi ran over 5 children around 17:52 on Tuesday, 15 March, before fleeing the scene on foot. The incident took place in KwaZulu-Natal. The minors were playing on the road when the white Toyota Siaya ran over them before it collided into a wire fence. The children were rushed to a medical facility. The residents told security company Reaction Unit South Africa that only one of the children was seriously injured, but this could not be confirmed. According to Arrive Alive, a driver can face a fine of up to 36,000 rand and a 9-year prison sentence, or both, for failing to stop after being involved in an accident, as the law in South Africa requires you to stop if you're involved in an accident where a person was injured or killed or suffers damage in respect of any property or animal. That brings us to the end of the first half of our top stories. More news after the break.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning, and thank you for staying with us. We now head on over to our second batch of news stories. Now, 4 missing after canoe sinks in Namuno, Mozambique. Now, 4 people disappeared in the Lorio River in northern Mozambique when strong currents caused the artisanal canoe in which they were traveling to capsize, authorities there have announced. Now, the accident took place in Cabo Delgado province, and subsequent searches for the bodies have so far proved fruitless. Now, the 4 people belong to the same family, 2 women, one of whom was pregnant, and 2 children. Now, the family was trying to cross the river to participate in a funeral, but the flow and strength of the current, aggravated by the rainy season, capsized the canoe made from a tree trunk. Now, the vessel's owner managed to swim to the bank and raise the alarm.
Nigerian volunteer fighting in Ukraine is better than living here. When Russia launched its invasion of Ukraine last month, 27-year-old Nigerian Otta Abraham was outraged. He picked up his phone and tweeted, "I want to join the team," 8,700 kilometers away from the front line in a small apartment in Nigeria's main city, Lagos. "We know that it's war. It's not child's play," he told the BBC. "But being a soldier in Ukraine would be better than being here. I'll probably be allowed to stay if the war ends. Plus, I'll be a hero and fight an undeniable enemy." Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba said that some 20,000 volunteers from across the world had already applied to enlist. They came after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky made a global appeal for foreign fighters to come and stand shoulder to shoulder with Ukrainians. The government has temporarily axed its visa requirements and offered equipment and a salary to those with a valid passport and military training. There has been no official confirmation that foreign fighters will be allowed to stay in the country after the war. The Ukrainian embassy in Nigeria, like others in Africa, has had to backpedal as many of the continent's governments do not want their nationals to fight in Ukraine.
In our next story, another journalist shot dead in Mexico, 8 so far this year. Now, a journalist has been shot dead in western Mexico, becoming the 8th killed so far this year, in an unprecedented spate of killings that has raised fears about the safety of journalists in the country. Now, Armando Linares, director of Monitor Michoacan, was shot dead at a house in the city of Zitácuaro. Now, the state attorney's general office said on Tuesday. Now, Linares' killing came 6 weeks after the slaying of a colleague, Roberto Toledo, from the same outlet, Monitor Michoacan. Now, it was Linares who announced Toledo's death on January 31 in a video posted to social media. Now, at the time of Toledo's death, Linares told the Associated Press he had received several death threats after enrolling in a government journalist protection program. Now, the EU resolution calls on the authorities, and in particular the highest ones, to refrain from issuing any communication which could stigmatize human rights defenders, journalists, and media workers, exacerbate the atmosphere against them or distort their lines of investigation.
Now, on the backdrop of Taliban taking over Afghanistan last August, Biden to grant temporary deportation relief to Afghans in the United States. The Biden administration will grant temporary deportation relief and work permits to Afghans without permanent legal status, but who are currently in the U.S., a move that could aid those evacuated after last year's U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. The grant of so-called temporary protected status will be available to 72,500 Afghans who entered on what is known as humanitarian parole, another temporary status, as part of the U.S. evacuation of at-risk Afghans last summer, the U.S. Department of Homeland and Security said yesterday. The designation will be available to those living in the United States from March 15 and last for 18 months, the DHS said, although the status could be renewed. About 80,000 Afghans have been resettled in the United States, the largest efforts of its kind since the Vietnam War era.
Now, in our next story, shisha smoking banned in Cameroon. Now, Cameroon is the latest African country after Kenya, the Gambia, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Ghana to ban the smoking of shisha pipes. Now, according to Health Minister, about 46% of young Cameroonians smoke the substance, which it says poses a serious risk to their health. Now, there is a misconception that shishas are not as harmful as cigarettes. The British Heart Foundation says an hour-long shisha session can be the equivalent of smoking more than 100 cigarettes. Now, the WHO, in its 2015 advisory note, informed that all studies to date indicate that during a typical water pipe use session, the user will draw large doses of toxins which have been linked to addiction, heart and lung diseases, and cancer in cigarette smokers. Now, the smoking of shisha tobacco is widespread in Africa, and its regulation has become a burden to most African countries as countries like Kenya and Sudan keep revising their regulations.
That brings us to the end of our top stories. Now, Dr. Michael Sampson, who holds a PhD in economics from Stanford University, after the break will be talking about how feasible a basic income grant is for Namibia. Stay with us.
Have you received a loan from NSFAF? NSFAF loan is the same as any other loan. It must be paid and settled. NSFAF has a set of guidelines on how you can repay your loan and become debt-free. Therefore, it is important that you, a former beneficiary and a responsible Namibian, show your patriotism by helping pay back your loan and thus helping NSFAF become a revolving fund for the benefit of future potential students. By failing to pay back your NSFAF loan, you risk being blacklisted or having a court order against you. So arrange with the fund to pay back your loan today. For more information on how you can repay your loan, visit our website at www.nasfaf.na or visit our Facebook page or Twitter. Do the right thing and hashtag #paybackthemoney.
Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning. Now, Dr. Michael Simpson, who holds a PhD in economics from Stanford University, has worked for 31 years in social protection and has supported the design, implementation, and evaluation of social protection programs in over 40 countries. Now, Simpson believes that a universal basic income grant in Namibia could not only stave off immediate food insecurity for thousands of Namibians, but help uplift Namibia's development overall. Now, in part one of his interview last week, he spoke about 3 of the most pervasive myths around a basic income grant. Now, in part two, in today's interview, Professor Simpson talks about the immediate impact of implementing a universal income grant. Yana Marie Smith spoke to him. Let's have a look at this video.
Namibia cannot afford not to implement a basic income grant. The World Bank classifies Namibia as an upper middle income country, but all you have to do is visit some of the poorest and most vulnerable communities in the country, and you are really called to question that finding. But it is the result of the very stark economic inequality that characterizes the country. It's really hard to measure inequality accurately, but the studies that have been conducted place Namibia amongst the 5 most unequal countries in the world. Some of these studies place Namibia number 2, some of them place Namibia number 4, but Namibia, like South Africa, face severe inequality. And so that label as an upper middle income country, while technically correct, but that doesn't mean anything for the person who's only earning a couple hundred. And what that means is that a basic income grant is more effective than anywhere else in the world, because a relatively small slice of the economic pie won't make a big difference for those who reap the extraordinary benefits at the upper end of the income distribution. Taking just 2 or 3% of national income is just a couple pennies on the dollar. Yet it can make an enormous difference for people who are earning the least amount within the country. The first and the most immediate impact we see is an improvement in food security, a reduction in hunger. This is a consistent result we've seen all around the world. When you give vulnerable households income security, the most important thing they spend this money on is food. And in communities that have been particularly hard hit by COVID, this is vitally important. These are communities that faced food insecurity even before the crisis. And as we heard from the World Bank's report, the number of people who have been pushed into severe poverty by COVID is a national calamity. But the second thing we see is also vitally important. We see that families use these resources to ensure that their children who might have faced bottlenecks to going to school because of informal fees that schools charge, or because they did not have money to pay for shoes or a breakfast to eat before they go to school, or school supplies, that families invest in their children. They invest in schooling, they invest in healthcare to build the human capital foundation of Namibia's future prosperity. The third thing we see, and this was fairly surprising, is we see substantial increase in economic activity. And as you think about it, it makes sense. Why is there so little economic opportunity in the poorest communities of Namibia? Because people don't have stable purchasing power. When you have income, you're afraid to spend it because you might need that for something more urgent, and you're even more afraid to invest because if you invest in your future livelihoods, you won't have that money to buy things that you desperately need, food, for example, or access to healthcare if there is a medical calamity. And so poverty can be stifling. Poverty creates risk for people, and these risks can be paralyzing. But when you give people a guaranteed steady income, even a small amount, 500 Namibian dollars is not going to break the government's finances, but it enables people to know that if they invest in a better livelihood today and they face an emergency tomorrow, they will have some means to tide them through. It will require a commitment by the government and by people who support that government to pay their fair share of taxes. But the benefits will be reaped by everyone. Everyone will receive this. And for many of them, this will be more than a complete tax rebate on the additional taxes they're paid. And for the poorest and the most vulnerable, it will be a vital source of resources to sustain not only their well-being, but their future capabilities and contribution to a robust and growing economy that will benefit all of us. And the benefits of this economic growth will increase people's incomes far greater than the marginal tax increases required to finance the benefit.
Choose your flex package with Paratus today. Sign up for ultra-fast fiber with the convenience of mobile LTE. That's 2 products in one bundle. It's new, it's one bill, and you can stay connected in more than one location.
For more information, visit paratus.africa/NA.
Always prepared. Paratus.
Thank you for staying with Africa. Good morning. We now cross over to the House of Stone, Zimbabwe, to have a chat with Talent Gore so she can bring us the news on the ground. Talent wamkase.
Tamuka kana mamukase Africa.
Tino Shinura. Now, in your first story, Talent, a new marriage law and HIV transmission. What's the new development?
So, willful transmission of HIV will be decriminalized once the Marriages Amendment Bill, which sailed through Parliament last week, is signed into law by President as government and Parliament move to keep abreast with international standards. There is international criticism by activists for criminalizing transmission of HIV. Now, the Parliament has moved in to end criminalizing transmission through Clause 53 of Marriages Bill, which repeals Section 79 of the criminal law, which made it an offense to transmit HIV to a partner in certain circumstances. The section about to be repealed made it an offense for anyone knowing they were infected with HIV or knowing there was a risk or possibility that they were, and then intentionally did anything or permitted the doing of anything that would infect someone else or involved a real possibility of infecting another person. Such people were guilty of deliberate transmission of HIV, whether or not they were married to the other person. And they were liable for up to 20 years in jail. So even though convictions were extremely rare in such cases, so in his presentation in the National Assembly during the initial stages of the bill, Justice Minister Ziambi said that the law criminalizing transmission stigmatized people living with HIV. He said that when the law was enacted, they were thinking that it would help to fight this. It would help to fight the spread of HIV by criminalizing those that would have transmitted to their partners willingly. So now there is a move to try and decriminalize the to decriminalize that. They're saying that in some way it is stigmatizing those people who are actually living with HIV. So the bill is now set to be signed by the president, and once the president signs it, it will actually become a law in Zimbabwe, whereby no one will be arrested for transmitting HIV to another person.
All right. Now, in your next story, the National Security Task Force has intensified the crackdown on smuggling between Zimbabwe and South Africa, and it has intercepted 15 buses carrying contraband worth thousands of dollars. Can you tell us more?
15 buses were intercepted between Monday and yesterday morning on major highways from Beitbridge, which are leading to Harare, Bulawayo, and other urban centers. National Police spokesperson Assistant Commissioner Ponyati said that the security authorities were not relenting on their quest to curb the scourge of smuggling. He said that the value of the goods that were intercepted by the police was uncertain. They were not really sure. By the time they produced the press statement, they were not sure as to the value of the goods that they had intercepted. But they said that the police said that they will not hesitate to arrest anyone involved in crime, especially smuggling or corrupt activities. And they are targeting individuals, syndicates, security personnel, companies, and transporters engaging in the illegal movement of goods across the borders. Apparently, on Saturday, 18 security officials were arrested for taking a bribe of 2,000 rand from a cross-border bus crew member in Beitbridge, and it is understood that the smugglers are shipping the goods through illegal crossing points along the Limpopo River, which they then load in buses heading to various towns in cities across the country. Well, this is not the first case that the police have actually arrested these cross-border buses. This is one of many cases whereby they are just arresting everyone who is involved in smuggling.
Yes, and we are grateful you have been reporting just about all of them on Africa. Good morning. Now, in the last of your stories, United Nations Development Program pledges $26 million to small-scale farmers in Zimbabwe. As briefly as you can, Talent.
So the UNDP has pledged 26 million to support small-scale farmers to deal with the effects of climate change. Apparently, low rainfall patterns this agricultural season have affected food production in most parts of the country. So the World Food Programme has estimated that more than 5 million people to face food security in the country. So the UNDP has since pledged 26 million to support small-scale farmers, especially those who are in drought-prone areas in most parts of the country.
All right. Thank you very much, Talent, for bringing us the news stories from Zimbabwe.
You're welcome, and thank you very much for having me.
It's always good having you on Africa. Good morning as we continue to decentralize African news for you. After the weather, we'll be talking to Masego Mohwasa in Botswana.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning, and thank you for staying with us. Now we head on over to Botswana, speaking to Masego Mogwasa. Good morning, Masego.
Good morning, Lenora. Good morning to you, Ashwin, as well. And good morning, Africa.
Good morning, good morning. Now, President Masisi implores citizens and residents to take booster shots. Can you tell us more?
Yes, our President Mokgweetsi Masisi has implored the public to take COVID-19 booster shots before available doses expire, as the government cannot afford to discard them. Currently, Botswana has more than 3 million doses of different vaccines in stock and is worried that people are hesitant to take their boosters. With a population of about 2.4 million people, Botswana is one of Africa's most highly vaccinated countries, with at least 73% of adults injected. Currently, over 224,000 people have taken their booster shots. The president said the government may be forced to donate whatever booster shots are not used to fellow countries which are currently struggling with acquiring booster shots. So he implores Botswana to just take the opportunity to take their shots. I know right now people are relaxed because the numbers are going down, especially the numbers in hospitalization, but the winter season is coming and apparently the fifth wave has arrived. So I do implore fellow Botswana to do that.
Indeed, indeed. Now, in the next story, Botswana Congress Party Women's League calls for representation. Please expand on that.
Yes, the Botswana Congress Party says its Women's League has proposed an increase in representation of women from 30% to 50% as written in the Constitution. This comes as the female underrepresentation in politics continues to be a challenge in the country. The BCP Publicity and Information Secretary, Mpho Pheko, says women in politics should be proportional to the population of women in the country. Pheko further highlights that the BCP seeks to create an inclusive platform for young women in their activism and approach for mentorship of future politicians. This comes after the leader of opposition himself called for an equal representation in politics, especially because of the ongoing consultative meetings on the review of the Constitution. I don't know about you, Glonora. Are you into politics? Because I have pondered about joining this space, but it's very, very scary.
Yeah, it is. It is. It definitely is very scary. Now, understanding your next story, Botswana athletics team receives a higher portion of the sponsorship for Olympics. Can you tell us more about this?
Yes, members of the athletics team have collectively received the largest share of Olympic scholarship for the preparations of the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. The Botswana Olympic Committee released the list on Monday. Just to name a few: Babuliki Tebe, Anthony Pesela, Baya Pondori, Lungo Scotch, Ditiro Nzamani, and Litsile Tebogo, among others, have been named the recipients. Other beneficiaries are Afias Bokan Kahiso of weightlifting, Maxine Egna of swimming, and Rajab Mohammed of boxing. The scholarship covers costs of training and qualification, medical and scientific assistance. It also includes lodging costs and pocket money. However, this scholarship is said to be able to be revoked if any of these athletes do not make it to the Olympics. Now, it's a great thing that athletics is receiving so much sponsorship in recent years, because before, only the national team was getting so much support from the government. So it is a good thing to see, and I hope more sporting codes receive this kind of support.
Absolutely. You do need to start at the grassroots in order to grow something sustainable. Thank you very much, Masego, for bringing us the news stories from Botswana.
And thank you for having me. Today is a safe time to say happy quarter to the weekend.
Happy quarter to the weekend. All right, we were just talking to Masego Mogwasa as she was giving us an update on the pertinent news stories in Botswana. And actually, after the break in economic news, we start off by talking about Botswana's inflation rate, which has remained at 10.6%. This is still Africa Good Morning. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with Africa. Good morning. Let's get straight into your economic news stories. And we start off in Botswana as inflation stays put at 13-year high. The rate of inflation remained at 10.6% in February, unmoved from January, with marginal price movements of various goods and services between the 2 months, a Statistics Botswana report indicates. The current inflation rate represents the highest level since March 2009. Fuel prices are already under pressure as the Russian invasion of Ukraine has led to the spiraling prices of global crude oil prices. The Botswana Energy Regulatory Authority last week said even before the recent jump in global oil prices, local pump prices were significantly below the cost of importing the commodity. According to Statistics Botswana's latest data, in the 12 months to February 2022, prices associated with the operation of personal transport rose about 44%. Over the same period, food and non-alcoholic beverage prices rose about 7%, while within that, prices of oils and fats increased by 28.4%. Meanwhile, electricity tariffs are due to rise again in April, while the Botswana Housing Corporation is also expected to implement the second phase increase in its rentals around the same time.
Now, in our next story, rice production may reach 239,000 tons in current agricultural season. Now, Mozambique can achieve food self-sufficiency in rice if it maintains the levels of production growth that it has been recording in recent years. Now, for the current 2021 to 2022 campaign, cereal production is expected to reach around 239,000 tons, corresponding to a growth of around 15% compared to the previous campaign. Now, if the country continues with growth levels of 15% per year by 2030, Mozambique will be self-sufficient in rice production, he underlined. Now, Celso Correa acknowledged that the country had great ambitions, being the only one in the region with conditions to produce not only for domestic consumption, but also for export. Now, he noted, however, that despite the positive results of the 2020 to 2021 campaign, increased consumption had meant that cereal import cost the country around $600 million, of which rice contributed 50%, equivalent to $300 million. Now, currently, Mozambique consumes around 500,000 tons of rice per year, of which 60% is imported.
Now, over the last week, we reported on how Comair's flights have been grounded. Now, in the next development, competition watchdog warns airlines not to hike prices after Comair's suspension. Amid reports of rocketing flight ticket prices in the wake of Comair's suspension by the South African Civil Aviation Authority, the Competition Commission has warned that airlines could be investigating for price gouging. Comair, which operates its low-cost airline Kulula.com and domestic British Airways flights under a license agreement, had its air operator certificate suspended at the weekend following a probe into recent safety incidents. After an initial 24-hour suspension, SACA on Sunday said that the air operator certificate had been suspended until further notice. Comair transports 40% of local airline passengers. The commission warned that if it found that airlines moved seats from low-fare buckets to higher-priced fare buckets or introduced new, much higher fares on popular routes, it may consider this an act of price gouging designed to deliberately exploit the current situation. The commission encouraged all airlines to add more flights or seats to help with the current shortage. It will contact the airlines over the next few days to establish what plans they have to address the current situation, as well as complaints about flight prices.
Now, Angola signs memorandum for wheat production in the country. Now, wheat production may experience a significant increase in the coming months with the signing in Luanda of a memorandum of understanding between the Angolan Wheat Flour Producers Association and Facen Davi and Ernesto Filhos, which it aims to directly support the cultivation of cereal and guarantee its outlets. Now, the agreement was signed by the president of the Producers Association, Cesar Rasgado, and the representative of the farm, Alfio Venvela, whose document foresees, among other aspects, the need to supply the industry with wheat grains for transformation into flour, since the farm currently has around 2,000 hectares already produced. And on average, the harvest forecast is 2 tons per hectare. Now, according to advanced data in terms of production, the association currently has 3 members who together have a production capacity of up to 900,000 tons of wheat flour per year to a market that consumes 650,000 tons annually. Now, according to the president of the Angolan Wheat Flour Producers Association, Cesar Rescado, it is necessary for the association to produce much more and achieve the maximum of installed capacity to satisfy national consumption.
That brings us to the end of our economic news stories. Now, just before we get into Ari's sports package, let's have a look at the economic indicators. Thank you for staying with Africa. Good morning. Now, Glenora and I have got the unfortunate predicament of being Arsenal supporters.
Is it unfortunate?
It is, because last night we lost 2-0 to Liverpool. And now I understand it. They say you never walk alone. I wish it was just one goal. Apparently that goal couldn't walk alone. They had to score 2. But here to give you the rest of the sports updates is Ari Hochad.
Yeah, good day everyone. It's time for international sport, and we start again with Women's World Cup cricket that's taking place at the moment in New Zealand, and it's defending champions England that's back to winning ways. They lost the first 3 games of the tournament under pressure to qualify for the semi-finals, but they came back. The latest result there from that World Cup is that England beat India by 4 wickets. What happened in the game was India batted first. They didn't bat well. They made 134 all out, and then England made the runs in the 31st over. It was 136 for the loss of 6 wickets for England. They won by 4 wickets, and also making the runs in 32 overs, also very good for the net run rate. So England back to winning ways in the World Cup in New Zealand. The next game will be in the tournament, will be New Zealand, the host, that will play against South Africa. Big game for South Africa. South Africa's got, they're unbeaten after 3 games, but they need to at least win 2 of the next 4 games to make sure that they qualify for the semi-finals. They play New Zealand next, and then also the other 3 games they still need to play is, they're all tough games. It's Australia against the West Indies as well, and also against India. Now we continue with tennis news. It is the Indian Wells Masters that's taking place at the moment in California, and it is Rafael Nadal, 35-year-old Rafael Nadal. He's still going strong, unbeaten in the 2022, and he played against Dan Evans of England, and he beat Dan Evans 7-5, 6-3. So he's through to the quarterfinals, and in the quarterfinals he will meet Riley Opelka. Opelka is from the United States. Opelka knocked out Denis Shapovalov of Canada in 3 sets. Also result in the men's section is 6th seed Matteo Berrettini, and he beat South African Lloyd Harris 6-4 and 7-5. In the women's draw, it is defending champion Paula Badosa of Spain that is through to the quarterfinals as well. And she beat Leila Fernandez of Canada in 2 sets. That was 6-4 and 6-4. Also, Maria Sakkari of Greece, she's the number 6 seed in the tournament. She beat Daria Saville, and that was by a walkover. Saville was injured. It was 4-1 in the first set, and Saville had to withdraw from the tournament. So Sakkari is also through to the quarterfinals. Now for soccer news on international sport, and it is a Champions League results. Not a good result for Manchester United. They've been struggling for the past few seasons, and they've been knocked out of the Champions League at home at Old Trafford. They lost to Atletico Madrid, and the score there was 1-0, and the aggregate score was 2-1 in favour of Atletico Madrid. That goes through to the semi-final of the Champions League. Not a good season for Manchester United. They're also out of the FA Cup in the English leagues, and at the moment they're outside the top 4 on the English Premier League. They in 5th position, quite a few points, 1 point behind Arsenal, but they've played 3 games more, and that is obviously important for any team to make the top 4 to qualify for the Champions League. 4 teams still trying to get into the semi-finals in the Champions League. So it will be Chelsea that will play the French club Lille, and then also Juventus that will play against Villarreal. And let's close off international sport with Formula 1 racing news, and highly anticipated 2022 season starts this weekend in Bahrain, and it is again Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton that will do battle. 23 races it will be in the season, so lots to look forward to. Interesting to look forward to this weekend, how the effect of all the changes in regulation that was made to all the vehicles. There was design changes all over the vehicle that had to be made, and it's got to do with the ability to overtake, and it is the FIA say that they will definitely be more overtaking in the new season, so that will definitely be a more exciting season, the 2022 season. Already 2021 was full of action, so hopefully there will be good action and good racing in the Formula 1 season. Starts this weekend in Bahrain. So that's the sporting news we have, international sporting news. Hope you have a great day, and we'll talk again tomorrow. Goodbye.
Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning from 7 a.m. as we have been bringing you the pertinent stories happening on the African continent and beyond. Now, if you perhaps missed our top stories at the top of the hour, worry not. Here are some of the headlines. 6 army recruits died during training in Zimbabwe. Gunmen kill 11 Nigeria security personnel in 2 attacks. Burkina Faso-born Dibedo Francis Kere, first African to win Pritzker Prize. Namibia home to 64,000 child brides. Taxi driver flees the scene after running over 5 children. Inflation stays put at a 13-year high in Botswana. Those have been our stories.
And with that, we've come at the end of our show. Now, do remember that Africa Good Morning is repeated on our 1UP2 website and on our DSTV channel 285 and our Gotv channel 94 between 8:30 and 9:30 a.m. every weekday. Now, if you have any comments regarding our show, do share them with us on our Facebook and Twitter pages. If you have a story for us, or pictures or videos of happenings in your parts of Africa, do share them with us and we'll gladly include them in our program. I am Glenara Shipura.
And I am Ashwin Berry Swera Jakanaka.